This is Just Call Claudia, a podcast for right-sizing your life and demystifying your relocation. On today's episode, I'll be chatting with Joelle Hayes and Suzanne Gignilliat. Now I'm going to introduce and welcome Joelle Hayes. Did not know your amazing background and didn't realize how many years you and Suzanne have been together. 20 years?
Over 20 years.
That's so cool.
Time is flying.
I guess this partnership really works.
Yes.
Which is really gratifying, right? To find someone with whom you can relate and share, and also share the stories, share some of the challenges, right?
Absolutely. I joined Suzanne, I think 22 years ago, and was introduced by a colleague of hers and a relative of mine who was selling real estate.
Okay.
And I used to sit in my uncle's model homes. He was a builder in the burbs in high school and college on break. So my relative who was working with Suzanne called me and said, "You should come sell real estate." I said, "I don't know, but I'll do it for a little bit." And here we are. And I've learned so much from Suzanne, and get to share in our personal journey, our professional journey, and become great friends and good colleagues.
I'm so happy. Tenacity is one of Suzanne's strong suits. Is that also one of your strong suits?
I think you have to be in this business if you want to survive and thrive.
So are you a velvet? I know you're not a sledge. Is there a hammer associated with Joelle Hayes?
I can be a little bit of both, depending on the client. Which,
Okay.
yes, as you know, in this business, you're going to have to mold a little bit with what our clients need, whether they know it or not. So sometimes I have to be tough, and sometimes I can,
I would say Joelle's a strategic hammer. We think very differently, and that brings good things to the partnership. So she always comes at things very differently than I do, and a very unique way of thinking, which is very helpful.
Complementary, right?
Yeah.
How about your mortgage brokerage background? How has that come in to play within your partnership?
Yes, I was in the mortgage business for a bit when I first started with Suzanne, and it's been very helpful just to watch rates, to give clients advice. I recently met with a young woman who I sold her a condo over a decade ago. She has an incredible amount of equity, and next year we're looking forward to her next purchase after she gets married. And we talked about how competitive the market is, and we were thinking creatively. And I said, I think we cannot write a contingent office in this climate, and with what you're going to be buying, it's going to be a competitive. And I said, I think you should do a cash out refi right now. Get some money out.
Because you know what that means.
And
if someone said that to me, I'd be like, oh.
Yes, and then next summer, she'll be in a position to have that down payment ready to go when we're writing contracts.
And you're keeping your eye out for the prime property that she, because you have to jump on it, right?
Correct, yes.
What is the market in Chicago right now? Super competitive, right? And what's that sweet spot dollar-wise? What's the product that's moving so quickly?
I think that first-time home buyer, if you're in the, looking for a condo in Lincoln Park for $300, or even that step up, the $500, $600, $700 market has been competitive, low inventory. And this year, actually, the luxury market has taken off.
I've noticed some of these multiple $1 million properties going, right?
Quickly.
In the burbs, I know. We also have seen, the 31.5 million property in Winnetka. There are not a lot of those on the market right now. I don't really know. But when I see that on Crane's Chicago Business, I'm always like, wow. And
in general, there's just not a lot of inventory. So there's a lot of buyers chasing whatever inventory comes on at a whole range of price points.
So that really brings a huge question to my mind. So people are sitting on their luxury real estate. What keeps them from calling one of you and saying, I'm really interested in listing because we're going to right size to our second home in Arizona, California, Florida? Why are people sitting on their luxury properties?
I think some of it is 2.5% interest rates, which they had during COVID, and people can't get rates close to that.
Right.
So even wealthy people appreciate the interest rates that they were able to get during the pandemic.
Why don't we talk about how you two, because often when I'm previewing a property with you, often you're together, which I think is so cool. How do you, when let's say someone at 1500 or 209 calls you and you're walking through, what does that process look like? And then if you're going to bring in somebody like CMFTO, how do you, because I'm never there when I'm initially, kind of whispered, like I think you might need Claudia McLaughlin or however you say it to come and take another look-see with us. How does the process work? And then how do you introduce our services?
Well, Suzanne and I usually have an initial meeting with the seller to tour their home, hear about what timing they're thinking of, where they're going to next. And sometimes it's an initial, gut reaction and a side eye across the room when we know someone needs help, whether they know it or not. Because some sellers say, I need help. I know my closets are a mess. I've got too much stuff. My bookcases are overflowing. And then some think they're ready to go. So we have to
disabuse of them of that notion.
Say we have a wonderful woman, Claudia, who we work with regularly, and we think you would be, benefit from having your services.
Right.
And we kind of gauge, with the client. I had one recently, widow making a very complex move. She had homes in multiple places. She was just overwhelmed thinking about getting her stuff to 3 different cities, and I just knew it was a moment to call Claudia.
Well, I know exactly about whom you're speaking, and we did have to really stage your property. We brought new furniture. Well, first off, we didn't, and then you called me about 3 months later, and you said, I think we really have to take this a notch up, because it was a property. It was a brownstone in Lincoln Park. And even though it was it had a pretty transitional vibe, her things were not transitional. And do you recall that one dining room break front, the size of Mongolia? It was huge. And
She loved it.
We loved it. And we love what our clients love. But of course, we're painting that picture of people don't understand it. And their first showing, of course, is online. And if they see that, they almost, I think, you'll correct me if I'm wrong, I almost feel like the buyers think they have to keep those pieces almost. Like that's part, you know what I'm saying? They can't visualize if it's there, and we know we don't want to see it for your first walkthrough, your first showing online. It must go. And that's when, could I get a little velvet hammer going too? Because that's when I have to, and you brought the best point up. When someone knows where they're going, right, we have so much more capability of doing that editing, because they're usually making a right-sized move, or our clients that move from 1500 to Arizona in an original Adobe. Certain things just are not going to vibe in that property. So it helps us in that editing process, because if they know they can't take it, some people actually do take it no matter what, but often they say, you're right, it's not going to work, right? And so that helps kind of cushion the blow, right? And since they're going to right size anyway, I always say to the client, you're not wasting any money. You're moving as much as you're just listing your property, but really, and you just said it, you're moving. We're going to list your property, but we've got to get you down the road on this move. And the quickest way to move is to make sure it's market ready and move ready to the best of our ability, right? Have you had a lot of transactions where it's a huge family involved, or?
Most of the children, though, don't want the stuff. I'm thinking about the one that we did together where you performed a miracle, Claudia. I had never been in an apartment that had so many objects, figurines.
Oh, yes. And laden, tables laden.
Yeah.
And I was just giggling at you're a master. The Post-it notes, color coding. I mean, you have a
system down.
System that
now
is
we go to colored tape because they love to take. Oh, I didn't notice that. No, it was like, oh, no. Now we use painter's tape. About 5 years ago, we switched that model to, okay, it's been approved. That gets the blue painter's tape, which indicates buy, and we'll find a buyer if we can. You would be amazed at how some of those Heron figurines can be secondarily bought, because I found a new resource that only does online. She used to have a beautiful porcelain shop, and she's gone to an online presence. She can move Heron china, Heron seals and dolls and dogs. I mean, it's amazing, because there are secondary buyers again. I never know when those resurgences of interest happen. It has been such an amazing journey.
A lot of clients want that. They, again, continue to overvalue their tchotchkes or figurines, but if you can help them, which you've been able to do, put them on the resale market and even get a little something for them, that's very valuable.
No, it definitely softens the blow.
Softens the blow.
What are we looking forward to in terms of the real estate market, for luxury real estate market, for 2026, do you think?
I hope the momentum keeps up. We felt such movement in the market that I just hope it continues.
Inventory's short, so it would be good if interest rates came down and some of these people who are sitting on their houses with low interest rates feel like it may be time for them to move, which would be good.
Because every year they age, and every year you age, your house is more
their refrigerator ages.
And their properties are more dated, which means then we have to really consider painting, like that property on West Oakdale, that wonderful couple with 2 daughters and a son. And there was a lot of work, because people, they live in their house for 10 years. They need to be attended to. They need to be freshened up. And yes, your 4-poster bed cannot be, photographed. And that was a younger couple. If I recall, they were a little bit younger. And it was kind of hard on them. I remember when I went for my meeting with you, Suzanne, and they're thinking, this should just sell on the market. Their buyer, because they did have a more transitional home, their buyer needed to see move-in ready and sharp and crisp. I like to use the word crisp in that case. And family collections and those kinds of things, they're just not appealing. They don't help sell the house, while so many people think, but look at my beautiful bookcases. Look at all my Campere. People don't care. They don't want the noise, right?
Yes.
Because the look today going forward is much more spare.
And
Clean,
you're the master editor. You are the
clean,
master.
spare, and the use of a lot of neutral whites. My favorite, AF40 by Benmore Etiquette, which people still call me. What? I just love that color, no matter where. It's kind of a great, in case anybody wants to know out there, AF50 is it, because it's grayish, it just morphs beautifully. I know you've seen it many a times in our properties.
And you touched on it earlier. So many people are watching HGTV, whether they're in the market for a home or not. So these buyers walk in and they think the whole place needs to be painted, the floors need to be redone. So as much as you can get out ahead of that, you're just going to appeal. And that translates in dollars too.
Right. Well, like you did on Seminary. You went in, the film on that, the photographs on that property, because there was some disparity in wood tones. Those are very hard things to explain to sellers today. It really impacts. It impacts those photographs. And so it's hard to explain that to people, because they've spent so much money on their homes. And because interest rates are so high, they're not going to exactly maybe, make the same dollar they were anticipating. How do you handle that with people?
Well, we've started to say too, interest rates are in the 6s. They're not terrible. And you can, marry the house, date the rate. So you can
mortgage broker, spoken like a true mortgage broker.
Find the house you want and
Yeah.
get into, an interest rate that's bearable, that you can afford, and plan to refi or get an ARM where, if you're going to transition. I mean, the move rate in Chicago is pretty high, because as you both discussed earlier, people start with the condo, go to the home, go to the bigger home. Get an ARM loan if you're only going to be in a home between 3 and 7 years, which is typically the Chicago market on average. So you can get creative with your finances, and don't let an interest rate stop you from.
Okay, because I think it does. At least that's what I'm hearing.
I think so, and that's why inventory is low, because people don't want to give up that rate, which I get, but sometimes, this working from home or divorce or marriage, life changes and you need to move.
Right,
So.
right.
We also sell a lot of co-ops, as we talked about, and most of the co-ops are cash buildings, so people have to buy in cash, so they're less impacted by the interest rates. So those are always nice sales when we have cash, because then we just don't need to worry about them getting financed.
Don't have to worry about that. Are you seeing any of the co-op buildings switch that business model and start units that have mortgages associated? Is that changing a little bit?
Since COVID, these co-ops needed to kind of open up their process a little bit.
Okay.
So they are allowing 50% financing. In
Oh,
some of
good.
them.
Okay, that helps
Yes,
a lot.
because when rates were so low, even people wealthy wanted their money in different markets, making money a different way for them. So they wanted to hold on to it. But buildings are getting better with allowing financing and allowing rentals on a case-by-case basis.
We've consulted with some of the co-op buildings to help them kind of come into the 21st century.
That's smart.
And say, if you want to sell, you cannot have the practices that you had in the 1950s with these co-ops. And some were as archaic as the 1950s. And so we have worked with many buildings to help them change their applications, their processes, their how they reveal their finances, and that has helped enormously. Those are the buildings that are moving.
I see.
So it's been very helpful.
With good, what's the word for it? With good finances, financially well situated, with enough money in the coffers. So if do people look at that closely when they're going into a co-op? I would think they would. Is there enough
financing?
Financing, yeah. So, and then what about, just to educate everybody on the introductory process of a couple or an individual to a co-op sitting before the board? How does that exactly work? Because I think a lot of people don't understand that.
You're looked at an approval process different than a condo. The condos are basically, if you can afford this and your loan is approved, you get into a condo. The co-op wants letters of references. They want a certain, it's called a Thomas report. It's a credit report that dives a little bit deeper in full financial disclosure of not only your own personal, but any businesses that you're invested in, and a full financial picture. They then go in front of the board and have a kind of informal meet and greet. Often goes well, but sometimes we have come across situations that people have been denied. They're not liquid enough. They have too much money in certain real estate. I remember we had a developer who had so much money tied up in projects that he was denied because he, didn't have kind of cash in the bank.
There's a different standard. If you could, it's not the same. The same priced unit in a co-op would have a much higher financial qualification number than a condo. So it's a different process.
So I'm very aware that Suzanne loves Chicago. She's a dedicated Chicagoan. And how about you, Joelle? I think you are as well, right? But do you specialize in more of the Roscoe Village area, or how do you and Suzanne communicate if Suzanne receives a phone call that takes her out of her sweet spot, so to speak? Does she then bring you into different neighborhoods?
Well, when I first moved to Chicago, I went right to the Gold Coast, and I was in a high-rise building for over 15 years, different units within the same building. But most of Suzanne and I collaborate on Gold Coast. That's where we sell. We have learned different buildings, which ones are kind of A tier, which ones over time, who has a good manager, who has a good board, what's the culture of this building, which has been really helpful. As I started having children, my husband and I decided to move to Roscoe Village, which we absolutely love, and have a great foundation of friends, community. My kids are in a local school there. I have 3 now.
Wow.
So, kind of broaden horizons to the Lakeview area, which is another hot market.
Right.
But most of our collaborations together are in the Gold Coast,
In the
Lakeshore
co-op
Drive,
space, yeah.
Right, in the co-op space. Right. How is Streeterville doing right now? Because I love walking around Streeterville. I almost feel like I'm not in Chicago. How do you feel about Streeterville? And how is Streeterville still very strong?
We've sold a lot in that area too, and there are a lot of co-ops in Streeterville too. So
They sure are.
the medical district is really, driving in that area right now. So a lot of doctors, walkable to work for them is, and the city's become alive again after COVID. A lot of people were shy about, crime here and press Chicago is getting, but the restaurants are full, the shops are full. If you drive down Rush Street,
It's amazing. It's like
Michigan Avenue is
no one eats at
mobbed.
home. No one eats at home anymore. I don't know where they're getting the money to pay for these high restaurant costs, but it is remarkable. It's like it's New Year's Eve all the time, which is so favorable.
yes. So I'm going to the theater tonight myself. And
Good.
Yeah, I love Chicago through and through. So no plans to leave, and can't love selling it.
Yeah. How old is your youngest?
She is 8.
I remember when she's itty bitty. Oh my gosh, Joelle.
Yes.
Wow. And how old is your oldest?
12.
Yeah. Ooh, that was fast.
Yes.
Those 4 years and 3 children.
Yes.
That'll keep you going.
I
I'm
started a
surprised
little bit late, Claudia, so we had to go.
You're still going to the theater tonight. So
Absolutely.
I'm very, very impressed. So I have come up with a question from these episodes on. I'm going to ask, kind of came on as a light bulb moment the other day, because I wanted to have a question that carries me through how many other podcasts I'm doing in the future. And I'm going to start with Suzanne first, because I think I know your answer. Since CMFTO specializes not only in preparing homes for market, carrying it through the move management process, and I think we barely talked about that, how we prep one of your clients' properties, and then we can move them, whether it's long distance or local, and we carry that through beautifully. But because getting back to the editing, and sometimes, our clients who have said, that must make the move. So if we're going to come into your home, Suzanne, what is the collection or item, no matter what, is going to be moved with you to your next residence?
I'm tall. My husband's tall, and my children are very tall. I have a 6'8" son and a 6'5" son. And I had designed 20 years ago a sofa that we all can sit on and kind of even lie on.
Wait a minute.
Yes. And it's kind of a U shape, but it's super long on one side, and we can all be on it and be comfortable. And even with wives and girlfriends, we can be on this. And so that would be the first thing that I would take, because it's the snuggle couch.
So that's going to go on the floor plan no matter what?
No matter what. I'd have to buy a house that allowed that couch to be in it.
Well, it's sitting beautifully now in your Lincoln Park residence, and I know you're not moving anytime soon since you just renovated.
So and I just reupholstered it, so it's here to stay.
Wait a minute.
So,
how did they get it out of the house?
It's 3 pieces, and it's kind of bracketed, and it was hard.
Yes.
It's hard.
A challenge.
It was hard.
Okay, Joelle, what about you?
I would say I have a dining room set that was vintage that I found with a matching break front that I have had for a very long time that I love. I've had the chairs recovered, and yes, it's dear to my heart. It's very special. My mother loves to find things and then calls me and says, you must buy this. So she found it for me.
Great. She's the broker.
Yes.
In this case.
Yes.
Awesome. I love that. Well, you'll have to send me photos of what those look like, because I think that's intriguing. But I thought I knew your answer. Your vintage handbag.
I thought you were going to say that.
That would be the second thing.
Okay.
And they are displayed artfully above the big behemoth couch.
Oh,
so right
I knew
there.
they were displayed. I've never been to your home, and I guess this is a way to get invited someday.
Yes.
But
So
I know you've told me about them, and we've talked about how precious they are to you and how people love to find a significant bag for you. So
I created behind the couch a vitrine where they're displayed on silk and hung. And so it integrates kind of with the sofa. But so they're right there. That would be the second thing. The couch goes first.
Okay. All right. Do you want to ask me the question?
I do.
Okay. Well, haven't come up with the answer, and I'm thinking if you're going to ask them to ask you the question, you better come up quickly. It's going to be either photo albums. I don't have a ton of those, but my photos are pretty sacred. My jewelry collection. Yeah. And all very portable. So no matter where I right size next or whatever that situation, those would be the non-negotiables.
That's easy. You always have fun jewelry on.
Yeah.
I'm not
I
surprised.
can't remember what I have on today. I could have really dolled up since it's the holidays, and I thought I'd tamp it down. But I do love
You
my
almost have, like,
vintage.
a little like lion earring or some kind of like.
These are foxes
Tiger
today.
foxes.
Foxes. Yeah, these are Watson Hunani, who's in the Smithsonian, and I'm crazy about his stuff. Ladies, I can't thank you enough for today. I was so looking forward to this, and I must admit I was a little nervous because I'm with some real super strong pros here. Thank you so much for your time. To learn more about Joelle, go to joellehayes.com. Thanks for listening. You can follow me on Instagram at CMFTO or check out our website, cmfto.com, to learn more about my business.